gentleman Josh Hill.
I'm Aaron Jeffrey.
I'm Jackson Busiest.
I'm Mike Malott.
I'm Rafian Style.
Tune into
Donttap.
Donttap.
That definitely, I think, in some of the handicappers I talked to, has influenced the gambling line.
You are now tuned into the Donttap podcast on the Game Change Hub.
Donttap podcast, we are back. And I know it's been patchy. It's been crazy. It's been, a show here, a show there. There's been no audio platform for we're coming up to almost a year, I think now.
Wow.
That has changed because now we have the Game Change Hub. Game Change Hub is now officially going to be the channel moving forward. And we have First and Locks, the college football podcast on there. And Donttap is going to be stepping up with, whether it's, with me, with Proper, going with Billy Briz, and there's a couple other people as, MMA Line Mover was interested in coming on too. So I'm going to do my best to make sure that we are consistent and get Donttap rolling on the Game Change Hub and get things dialed in. So I thought, we could force the Holloway one because we're shooting just pre, the Holloway Topuria card. But I didn't want to really force out picks and last minute, whatever else. And a lot of people already have their takes and the lines have settled where they're supposed to settle. There was just no point. So I'm going to put out a couple picks later on. But we're going to just jump ahead. There's some lines out, but not props out. There's some maybe not public action yet. So we haven't really seen where the lines are moving. In UFC Fight Night Edmonton, Albazi Moreno. Really love this card. There's a couple of really spots that I definitely want to attack. This is an alert for you guys. This is a Canadian card with Canadian fighters, with Canadian fighters I have ties to, that I'm just going to tell you I'm going to be a little bit of a homer, but I'm going to try to bring as much logic to the spots if I do have a homer spot that I can, so you can decipher one way or the other. Either fade my ass or tail. All right?
I mean, listen, it's going to be a tough go to not be a little bit of a homer after our last card in Canada. If you forgot, I think we didn't have a Canadian win. I think we went 0 for 9. I think it was.
Just the laws of averages got to tell you proper that we got to get some. At least, I think this is going to be a 50-50 one. I think we had a big win. We sweep the card in Vancouver. We got swept in Toronto. I think there's going to be sort of a 50-50 one. So be careful with the homer plays you do put up. And I just wanted to officially say Proper MMA all the way from the west coast of Canada. Welcome to the show, man. It's been a while since you've been on, so glad to have you back.
Glad to be back.
All right, man, let's get into it. UFC Edmonton. The new gloves are a thing I'm looking at, whether it's the new gloves or not. But since UFC 303, there is some stats and the overs are cashing. So I'm not buying too much into it. Like a Derek Lewis, I don't give a fuck about gloves. That man's going to put you to sleep if that man's going to put you to sleep.
No matter what he touches you with.
100%. And a lot of the KOs, though, have been like elbows, knees. There hasn't been a lot of straight knockdowns and drops from hands. So I'm going to be looking at that stuff, and we'll be talking about the over parlay, which is something new that we're going to be bringing to the table every week on the Donttap podcast. But for you, I want you to bring your first spot to the table for UFC Edmonton. Let's go.
Perfect. I love kicking it off here. My number one play, it's going to be in the main event. And I'm going Amir Albazi money line over Brandon Moreno. He's plus money right now. I think he's plus 120. Now, hear me out. Most people I've seen are on the Brandon Moreno side. Obviously, he's champ. He's been there. He's done that. The one thing I realized in the UFC kind of career and watching these guys for a couple of years now, once that kind of athlete has that time, the sport is not very forgiving, which means it's not like a GSP era, okay? Those times are in the past, okay? When that fighter starts to lose, starts to show a little bit more holes that maybe we haven't seen before, gets a little bit older on with age, we start to see a little bit of a different fighter. And we saw that against Brandon in the Brandon Royval fight, right? Like I was on personally Brandon Royval because again, that guy is always a dog. I cash against him against Tatsuro Taira. But I will say Brandon Moreno should have won that fight. He absolutely should have won that fight. And I think that was the first time that we saw a little bit of holes and a little bit of a downfall from a champ. And I think You put a guy, perfect example, Kamaru Usman. Okay, right? He gets there. He is the guy. Israel Adesanya, he's the guy in that division for time. You see them lose, right? You see them go through a little bit of a rough patch. It is super difficult for those guys who are now older to make a bounce back and try and regain a title shot. That is why I think.
And if they've been a champ, one thing to back your thing, and if they've been a champ and they have that money, that it's hard when things get comfy and you're getting older and the expectation of you not being the champ falls off. I see it. I see your narrative.
I mean, hey, listen, I've always thought Amir Albazi was super, super talented. And if you're giving me a plus 120, I mean, I can't not take that. I mean, it's just going to be super easy in my opinion. But also, I do think he could take advantage on the feet. I do think that's where you're going to see the biggest holes. I think you're going to see Brendan Moreno diving for legs after 4 rounds, and Amir Albazi is just, if you do get a chance to watch, I think his fight against, was it Mateusz Gamrot? I can't remember. He had a crazy fight. I mean, maybe 2 years ago. If you guys get to go watch his previous fights, you guys will see very quickly that he is equally as good as on the ground as he is on the feet. He's just an athlete. I think this guy's body technique and fitness level is out of this world. And he's coming off a little bit of a layoff. So I think this is a really good opportunity for a plus money dog.
Yeah, coming off a big win over Kai Kara France in the split decision, and then Alessandro Costa as well too. And I see your point. I see the value in the dog, and actually, it's one thing I love to actually look at for stats in main events. Dogs have been cashing, overs have been cashing, and dogs have been cashing. So I don't know if that's a perceptual thing. You seem to be nodding your head in agreement. So I'd love to actually maybe go look at least a couple fight cards back and see what that is. But
the one thing that I've been doing, I'll drop a little secret knowledge for all you listeners. If you guys know, if you're a Canadian, or even if you're not a Canadian, the sports book called Betway, they always drop a Betway boost for UFC fighters, and it is always the last 3 favorites on the card to win, and they boost the odds, and it never hits. So whenever I see it come out on a Thursday or Friday, I lean the 2 favorites. I'm like, okay, yeah. And I always play a dog in the last 3 fights of a UFC fight night. Again, that's just a secret little knowledge, secret sauce for you boys. Good note of thumb. If co-main favorite hits, the fighter before favorite hits, play the dog. Even if you don't love it, we've seen it happen before. Even Brandon Royval, great example.
Yeah, I mean, like Albazi, as much as you want to say, could this be a level check at the championship level with Moreno? But Albazi is the real deal. 17-1-0. And, if you've watched tape on him, I know you have, of course. I'm saying just anybody who's listening, if you've seen him fight, he does have all the tools. He puts it together really nicely. That's why I really had an issue with seeing how these exchanges will play out. I was back and forth in this one, but I don't see a problem in the dog shot in this one. It's likely where I would end up going with it, with the dog or pass type situation. Or at least even a setup for a hedge bet. But yeah, man, I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all. So I'm going to bring my first spot to the table. I'm going to take a look at the co-main event, man. And I'm going to take a look at Rose Namajunas against Aaron Blanchfield. What's that?
I said Thug Rose. I love it.
Yeah, Thug Rose. I mean, she's only a slight dog right now at plus 105, but I think this line could move. I don't know how the market's going to respond. It's either going to be, those sharps that are going to say, no, Blanchfield's the one, she's the one, or the old heads like me that are going to say, no, Rose is going to stick around and do it. Here's my argument for this. Blanchfield, when she can't get her takedowns going, sort of looks like she's a deer in headlights trying to get her striking together to figure it out as she marches forward. And someone like Thug Rose is going to pivot out on angles and land at every catch point. So like at every point that she lands and pivots out and Blanchfield stops, she's going to get hit. And, she's going to be weaving in and out. And I just think she's going to be able to matador a lot of what Blanchfield does. So I'll take the plus money now. The line could move in a way that, I'll know I was right. At worst case scenario, I may also hit it over on this as well too, just to sort of back it up. That's what I've been doing with a lot of my fights, to sort of hedge out some of my bets. The overs have been cashing, like I said. So But I just think there's value. It's a huge level check. It's a 5-round fight, and although Blanchfield has fought, I think I don't have it right up, and I don't want to pull it up right now. I think it's 1 or 2 5-round fights.
Yeah.
Nama Yunus has fought most of her career in 5-round fights, and just with the boxing, with the conditioning, with the ground game as well too. Even if it does get to the ground, which I think Blanchfield probably will get her to get to the ground once or twice.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And if she doesn't, it's because of the footwork. So it's either the footwork keeps her off and there's no clean entries. And then on top of that, if she does get in on her and does take her down, the jiu-jitsu will help her get back to her feet. And I just think Rose is way better on the feet. I think this line is off just slightly. So I'll hit the plus money rate now as well too. And also I want to hit the plus 5.5 on DraftKings, because I think if this goes to decision, I could get screwed, or I could, whatever. At least she wins a round. That's or whatever it is. The gap on the scorecards for the 5.5. So I'll take that all day long. What do you think about that? Rose Namajunas, Aaron Blanchfield.
I love that. I love that breakdown. I think it could be definitely a close fight. I do think Blanchfield's going to get a takedown or 2, maybe even 3. But I will say the one thing that you pointed out that I'm gonna grow off of is Rose Namajunas is the absolute best at controlling her range, and that comes from footwork. Okay, so you mentioned her footwork, and she's so good at cutting to the side and not allowing her opponents to just follow her. She cuts out of angles and takes herself away out of danger from those double legs, those blast singles, or those single legs, or those when they catch the kick, right? They lift your foot up and they take you down. That is the main thing that in this fight that I think wins Rose the fight is her footwork and her ability to control range. I also believe that Aaron Blanchfield's way to take away the range sucks. I think she doesn't have the striking ability to set up takedowns. I don't think you can just run at Rose and get a takedown.
She's going to get her face jabbed off.
Grab the pieces.
Jabs. If I could just get jabs as a prop right now, that is going to be utilized hard. Jabs to the chest, jabs to the face to keep her off. And she's going to get tagged.
You may see Rose Namajunas have an all-time history or all-time record for significant strikes here. You may, even with leg kicks. That's the other thing, is she has to be very, very, very careful. And I would say even in the first 2 rounds, maybe ease off of the leg kicks as the fight starts to progress. And as she kind of gets that control distance and range, chop that leg down. It doesn't even need to be hard. Just touch it. Because I don't think, I have to look back at this, but I don't think Aaron Blanchfield switched stances, or she switched stances very well. Okay. And for a wrestler, if you take away that lead leg and you already don't have great striking, that's what we saw. That's how we saw her get exposed against Manon Fiorot, right? Like everyone and their mothers was telling me, oh, Aaron Blanchfield by decision. She's going to wrestle her for 5 minutes, 50-45. Yeah, and I was on Manon Fiorot, and it was 50-45 the other way. So again, I'm big on the fact that we've seen holes from Blanchfield, and I do believe that Rose doesn't have equally as amount of holes, and I do think that Rose can kind of combat those holes as well. So Rose by decision, that's probably what I'd go with. If you're looking to play it safe, I'd just say it goes the distance. But if you want to pick a winner and get a little prop money, Rose by decision is not a bad bet.
Depending on where the line goes, like I'm probably going to hit it at plus 105, and then depending on how the line sits going into it, I'll probably hit like Rose and then round 2 to start. It'll only give it a slight bump, but I'll take the slight bump.
Absolutely.
Because that sort of works for me. All right, with this one, even round 3 to start would be good. So,
yeah.
But yeah, okay. I'm glad we're on the same side as that. Just value in that. And I think we've actually talked and chopped it up on a Rose card before, and we're on the same side before. So I think we cashed that time too. So, yeah, let's take a look at your next spot. What do you got?
I'm going with the prelim opener. I cashed massive on this guy last time he fought. I think his money line was plus 520, and I cashed. I sent it out early. We're going Ayman Zahabi over Pedro Munoz. I just think this is a bad stylistical matchup for Pedro Munoz. Again, same kind of philosophy I have in the main event. We've seen that individual in Pedro Munoz kind of at his peak career. We've seen a steady downfall in his career. He's 38 or 37. He's getting older. He's not a big guy for the division. Like maybe 6-7 years ago, he would fit in for that division. Guys are starting to come in a lot taller, a lot skinnier, a lot more powerful. And Ayman Zahabi is just, we saw it in his last fight against Basharat. He's unreal on the mat. And that's where Pedro Munoz has to take this fight to win the fight. So again, I think even if Pedro Munoz gets Aiemann Zahabi down, he's active enough to throw up some submissions to get back up to his feet. And I'll take Aiemann Zahabi on the feet over Pedro Munoz any day. Pedro Munoz is very good at setting up his strikes to level change. But I just think Aiemann Zahabi, that's where Aiemann Zahabi would prefer the fight, is on the ground. And everyone slept on his jiu-jitsu and his BJJ and his wrestling his last fight. And we're also taking a fellow Canadian here, and he is a dog at plus 105. So I'm gonna ride with him over Pedro Munoz again for similar reasons I have in the main event.
Yeah, I was looking at this one. I like the spot. I just tried to not front load Canadians into this card too much for myself. But where I see the advantage in this one is Pedro actually has the volume advantage.
Yes.
But his striking differential is atrocious. He lands 5.32, but absorbs 6.23. And while I think he's going to be the guy leading the dance in the striking, he's going to march forward and try to land. That's going to play right into Zahabi's style, where although he's been trying to be more aggressive as of late, he's more of a counter striker with power.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to step in and throw 3 strikes. He's going to throw 2 or 1 and land a big shot. And he lands a big hook, and it's night. So Munoz has been shown that he's not durable at times and has been cracked multiple times. Younger, more of a momentum right now, I would say, and surging, coming off a big win with Basharat, showing that like he can do sort of what, and I know Kyle Nelson, obviously not an example at this point after his last loss, but being able to slow the fight down with power. Yeah. So you throw big shots, everybody else starts to slow the fight down to your pace. And that's what Zahabi does well. And he makes you think about the counter. And then when you're thinking, that's when he catches you. So exactly. I like the spot. I think there's good value on that spot for sure. Munoz to maybe even, I could see a retirement coming soon from this guy. I think, are we not almost there with him? What do you think?
We're very close. Let me just double check to how many losses he's got, but I think his last 2, he might be last 2 or 0-2 or 0-3. So, I mean, it's classic. You're starting to see 37, 38. He's lost his last 2. If he loses this one, that'll be 3 fight skid. And then you're borderline of like
whatever.
Yeah, you're not getting a title shot. You're probably gonna fight unranked, you know. So, I think that's a very, very good spot for a plus money play.
Like it, man. I like it. We're going to go to a spot that is 100% a homer play. I can't deny. It's also an ROI play. It's a girl that's I like her at dog money, though. I like her when she's normally underestimated. I like her when she's normally, I don't know. Everybody shits on her, to be honest. They shit on her striking, although her striking is now very solid. Her pressure, her cardio, her gas tank are like no other in the division, really. She can press forward and melt girls. Her takedowns are probably some of the best in the division. Her control time, and then on top of that, she's probably one of the more active wrestlers in the division. So when she's on top, she's landing elbows, she's attacking submissions, she's accruing points. So you can trust a wrestler to get a decision. This matchup scares me a little bit. I'm not going to lie, just for the fact that Lipski is an elite striker. And the line right now currently sits at Jasmine Jasudavicius at minus 165 versus Ariane Lipski at plus 140. Why the scaring of why Lipski scares me is every time I fade her, she comes through. Every time I go to bet her, she loses.
Yeah.
Solid striker, but it hasn't really translated well to MMA. And where I think that I see the clink in the armor, where the line actually is right, is I think that the threat of the takedown is going to be an issue for Lipski. And although she does have opportunistic submissions that she can throw up, she's really not amazing off the ground. She's solid, but she's not like she'll grab up she got the calf slicer, I think. She's got some crazy submissions on her record, but really she's a striker. She's a kickboxer. So if we're looking at it, if Jasmine can march forward, she may take 1 or 2 to get in on those hips, but I think there's going to be no messing around. And she's shown that fight IQ. When she needs to take it to the ground, she will. When she needs to run girls on the cage, she's like, no one can really. When she gets into the cage, I feel very confident where we are if you're on a Jasmine ticket. So what I'm going to do with this fight, I think I'm going to take Jasmine money line and fight to start round 2. It'll give me a little bit of extra bump on this. I don't know where the line will go on this. There might be some love on Lipski because really, if you look at it, it's women's MMA. And I say that only because women's MMA already trends over to a decision. Mm-hmm. Then we're putting it in the judges' hands. So even if you feel strong about one person or the other, the dog has value, right? So if you're going to decision a lot and it's going to go to decision, there's dog that has value. So I get it. I'm not going to hate the Lipsky side if you're on it, but I'm going to take my homer play. I'm going to get some more value on it with the fight to start round 2. I'm going to go with Jasmine. I don't want to parlay her. I'm just going to leave it solo as a solo bet, and I like it. I wish I had a little bit more meat on the bone, but we'll leave it where it is. -165. Hopefully it doesn't climb too hard before my books and I get to touch it up at I'll probably hit it up at -180, like I said, but with the fight to start round 2 as well too.
Yeah. No, I mean, listen, I'm on the same page as you. Again, I do worry about her in this fight, and I think it's the matter of the first round. In my opinion, Jasmine's got to go out there, show her how she's going to fight, get in her face immediately. None of this feel it out phase on the feet and have one takedown attempt in the first round. No, you can't do that with Ariana Lipsky. And I feel like if she does, where we see Ariana Lipsky really, really excel is when you get her comfortable on the feet. When you allow her to get comfortable on the feet, she's like superb. I think it was either her last fight or the second fight or the one before that I faded her, and we didn't get it to the ground like we thought. And this girl just pieced her up, everything, head kicks, right hooks, jabs. That is my worry for this fight. I think if Jasmine can get the takedowns, I think it's easy work for her. I love the point that you said, she's one of the most active wrestlers in the division because she loves to immediately get to side mount or side control and land elbows or look to kind of get into full mount, step over cross. And that's the one thing I love about Jasmine. I do think the sub prop is very live. Ariana Lipsky does give her back to get up. I've seen it many, many times. It's a common thing to just give up your back, get on your elbows. And I think the sub prop round 2, round 3 could be super, super live. The other thing I want to mention before I move on, Lipsky can also get real hard on herself if the fight's not going her way. So if the fight's not going her way in round 1, she gets pretty mentally defeated. I've seen it a couple times before on the stool where she's like, I got no answer for this. But if round 1 ends, she stays on the ground for 30, 45 seconds, gets up, starts landing a jab, landed those nasty kicks. This could be a real close fight, and I start to lean a little bit of a live bet on Lipsky if that's the case. But I hope Jasmine gets it done. I think stylistically she can get it done. I think the fight IQ is there. I think she knows what she's got to do. So I would go Jasmine. I think my pick would be Jasmine by decision or points. Or sorry, decision or sub. Sorry.
You bring up a great point. That one thing I actually had in my notes was about the pressure is going to have to be key, and I think that it's the one thing where I think there's the sway in this fight or the clink in the armor for Lipsky. If Jasmine can step inside the kicks, that's the first thing she has to do.
Yeah.
Take those kicks out of off the table.
Yes.
No kicks. You're not getting touched up. And then watch those knees as she enters. But I mean, really welcome the knees. Grab those knees up. That's fine. I'm more worried about just elbows close, tight hooks and elbows close. She's gonna have to get in on those hips right away, grab a single, but use her pressure to get respect and sort of stifle that offensive Lipsky a little bit right out of the gate, and then just get in on wrestling, tire this girl out over the first round, and then drag her into deep water and drown the hell out of her.
Exactly.
But yeah, great breakdown by you. And I think for me, I just felt like I had to attack this fight. I know I shouldn't just be such a homer on all of them. With the line, I probably shouldn't attack this fight. But I just I see the pressure being the sort of advantage here. I guess it's me being the breakdown guy, being cocky, thinking I see an angle, and I want to be right.
Yeah, absolutely. We all do. I mean, I do think this is one of the Canadian cards where Mike and Jasmine are on the same card again, and I do think you kind of see that Patty Molly duo come out, and I do think they both get a win, and they get that kind of moment inside the octagon or at the press conference or whatever it is. So I do think they both get it done. Again, we touch on proper, I'm sure, but the Jasmine side does make me a little bit worried, just a little bit.
So what do you think for your finals play? I mean, the one thing with the Jasmine line, I'm sort of hoping some love comes in on the Lipsky line, because then I can just sort of
Yeah.
I'll feel even better. You know what I mean? Like if it's sitting at close to a pick'em or a plus, then I'm good to go.
Yeah.
Sort of dive back into that. But for you, what is your third and final spot on the table?
Third and final spot. Try not to be a homer, but I have to be. I came on this podcast. I've given him out, and I watched him lose live. We're going with our boy Charles Jourdain. I just think if you're giving me a Charles Jourdain at even money, -110, the line sits at right now, against a guy who, again, 38 years old. If you haven't seen a common theme in all my picks, there's a common theme of we fade age, we fade the career trajectory. Victor, I think he fakes Victor. Not that impressed. I don't think, Charles Jourdain has to worry about being put on his back for 15 minutes in this one. I think this is one for the fans. He's gonna have to have a bounce back. I think he knows that, or his job's on the line. I just think you're gonna see Jourdain style all over this fight. Jab him up with the jabs, front kicks, low kicks, high head kicks. I think the kicks for Jourdain in this fight are massive. I pray he has the fight IQ this time to actually throw his kicks. Against last time, Sean Woodson, I don't know why he didn't decide to chop the lead leg down because it was just right there in front of his face. A little frustrating. Again, same thing could happen this weekend, in the future weekend, not this weekend, and 2 weekends. But yeah, I mean, I thought Charles Jourdain would be -180, -200 when I saw the fight on announced or Tapology. Took a look at the live betting line, and it's a pick'em. So I'm gonna go with Jourdain money line.
Yeah, the love for Victor Henry has sort of fizzled, hasn't it?
It has.
I think this is a good spot for Jourdain, and I think if you're a guy who's backed Jourdain and cashed with him multiple times, this is a spot where you dig in on a money line spot.
Yeah.
I've just jumped in at the wrong times with Jourdain. Where I backed him and he's lost at the wrong time. So for me, it's a stay off because I do think this could be a high volume, pretty fun stand-up fight to watch.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, I see you going with it because it is close to a pick'em. He has been ROI for you in the past, so I fully get it.
To just expand on the Jourdain side, if you're looking for a little bit of a prop play, I think Jourdain by decision is a great bet. I mean, hopefully we get the home advantage in the judges. Last time in Toronto, it felt like they hired judges from the US, but it's all good. Hopefully it's not a repeat.
I mean, Sirhi City, who someone else sort of grazed over a little bit at the end of the podcast. Yeah, he won that fight. But anyways, yeah. Home cooking the other way.
Exactly. We don't need a repeat of that. I don't need to relive my experience.
That was that card left us saying we want to win the war, not the battle. Like that was a rough night.
Yeah,
that night hurt a lot. And that was the night that started the Fade Canadian on MMA Twitter. Fade Canadian is the thing in MMA. And they think we all suck.
Yeah, and let me tell you, just a side note, if you follow Contender Series, it hasn't gotten any better for us.
I mean, I don't know if it's that they haven't plucked, because I know that there's other talent that they could have put on the Contender Series this year that they didn't. And then every dog was a Canadian. Like all the Canadians were dogs. There could have been other talent in other matchups. There was no advantageous situation for Canadians, and it was like even if we got one, I would have been happy. But neither here nor there.
Exactly.
So I guess I will bring my final spot to the table.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, there's a couple fights I still want to talk about regardless anyways, and we're going to build a parlay, and I'll talk about Mike Malott after the fact and a prop I want to bring to the table. But there's one line that's just interesting to me, and although that I think Jonata Deniz is solid, he's a heavyweight that I think could be sticking around the heavyweight division for the next 10 years. I think that, with 8-0, with the hands that he has, the power that he has, I just think it's going to be, a great career for him in the UFC, and he'll be able to stick around for a while. But I'm going to get Derek Lewis 8-8 at dog money right now, and with Derek Lewis sitting at dog money, it's only slight. It's not anything crazy.
Yeah, plus 130 I saw.
I mean, heavyweights be heavyweights. Heavyweights get knocked out. So I always like to look at the dog anyways. And with all of these, overs cashing, even in heavyweight fights, like with Despain, fight to start round 2. I cashed on that. Was plus like 125.
Yeah.
You know, so like these things are happening, but there is these outliers, and Lewis is one of them. When he touches you, you go to sleep. That is it. And Denise is going to give him his win condition. He's going to stand on the feet with him. He's not going to take him to the ground or try to. I mean, maybe he does. But I don't. That's not what he does.
No.
So we're going to stand on the feet, heavyweights, and Derek Lewis, who can turn your button off with just grazing you with his hands. I mean, and he throws a flying knee in there too, which is whatever. That's an anomaly. But I mean, come on, man. I'll take the KO. It's probably going like when the line finally settles, it's probably only going to be around plus 140 or plus 150. But I'm going to hit it. Derek Lewis KO is almost an auto bet in a lot of cases for me. And this one especially, I think this is a giant case of a level check. And I should have just put that disclaimer up. This is like one of the level checks for me of the night. Denise, although has proven with what he's had in front of him so far, this is a huge step up, man. A huge step up.
I mean, again, like you look at just the competition level of Denise. I gonna be honest, I faded him in his last. I faded him on Contender Series. I don't think he's that great. I think he carries a lot of power, and at heavyweight, that's kind of all you need sometimes to get on the scene, to get on the UFC scene. And I'm not going to say that UFC heavyweights aren't skilled, but to get into the UFC as a heavyweight, as long as you can stand and bang, you have a pretty good chance. And he can do exactly that. I don't see any threat for kicks, for takedowns, for Lewis. Anything that he struggles with, Denise does not offer. So again, you're giving to me him at plus 130 or whatever the odds are going to be. I think the line could even go a little bit higher. I could definitely see some money coming in on Denise just because of how we've all seen Lewis's record, how it all looks on paper. But the last thing I'll touch on the Lewis point is, even though this guy hates the cold, he loves Canada. And I think he's won every single time in Canada and hopped on the mic and had a highlight kind of moment. We had it last time where, he made a couple funny jokes on the mic in Canada. He said, y'all can keep the snow. He's moving back to Texas. But I see a similar thing happening here. I mean, if you're on him, KO prop, most likely going to be it. But again, don't hate the money line side. I do think the KO prop is the way I will go about it. But I love Derek Lewis here. I think if he loses, you might see him retire. So I do think it's kind of one of those, you win, your career continues. And if you lose, you probably hang it up, right? So we'll see how it goes. I love the dog money on Lewis. If you're going to give me Lewis at dog money any point, because he has the ability, like you said, doesn't matter what he hits you with. He could hit you with a toe, you're probably going out. All right. So again, I like that side.
Yeah, I hope money comes in and love comes in on Denise. I don't know if that changes the KO line too much, because sometimes it might change the money line, but not the KO line too much because they know it's Lewis. Yeah. So, I mean, even if I can get Lewis around plus 180, like if I can get in around there for a KO prop, I'm slamming it. I'm going to slam it. So yeah, I like that we're both sort of on the same side with that. I'm used to Billy. Billy just he's my antagonist.
He's a little bit of
he's on one fight. We go to war.
Yeah,
which isn't always a bad thing.
No, it's not. You want it to be. You want to hear the other sides, the other way that people are thinking, right? But again, I think those are kind of, we have the same philosophy when it comes down to breakdowns and fighters and styles. So again, I couldn't agree with you more. I haven't backed Denise in the past. I don't see me backing him for the first time against his biggest step up in competition. So yeah, we're on the same page for sure.
Okay, that's going to bring us to the latter portion of the podcast. We are going to first build a parlay, and I'm okay with chalk. I don't care if it's even a plus, like a minus 150, minus 160. I don't care if it's up. We're building a 2-piece. If we feel it's solidly going to cash, it's going to cash. I'm gonna be an asshole though. I let you go first on the other portion, and I'm gonna hog Mr. Malott on this one.
Yeah, you do it. Do it. That wasn't my pick. Do it.
I think as far as one of the lines that is likely a parlay piece where I feel solidly about it, it's Mike Malott. There's a couple other lines I'm curious to see when they come out, because I have a couple narratives that I want to bake into this with you, because of the way this guy thinks, what happened in his last fight, and what might happen with this fight, and how this might be a little bit of a sneaky over.
Yeah.
Okay, Trevin Giles, although, I mean, for him, the biggest thing is the guy gets knocked out. In his 6 of his UFC fights, he's been knocked out 3 times and then sub 3 times. But the subs usually come from being dropped. So with this is going to be a huge problem for a guy like Mike Malott, who, I mean, the sub game is really on point. I know that a lot of people are shitting on him, and the public that was backing him huge. All the fair weather fans are now off him because of the, he's up 2 rounds, loses to Magny in the 3rd after going for the guillotine. But for me, when you have a guy who's been finished in all of his losses, who doesn't have great durability, sorry. He has good power. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Giles can turn your lights out at any time. He's turned out some of the better guys in the division's lights out. However, I just see a club and sub situation in this one, man. I could see Mike. I mean, once again, with the trends of overs, maybe people aren't getting dropped in the way that they used to. Mike does have that power, though. I think he could drop Giles, and Giles got a little bit of a soft head. He drops. Mike goes down with him. I mean, he could finish him via TKO, but I just think he's going to secure up a submission, get real safe with it, call it a day. But I don't know if that's going to happen early, man. I think that could happen a little bit later in the fight. I think this might drag over because Mike doesn't want to jump on something too early. Mike does want to draw the fight out and really make sure before he jumps in for the kill, he's got it locked and loaded. The guy's methodical. I know he's going to likely realize he jumped in too hard to try for a finish there. He could have let it go over and win a decision. And I think that's the biggest thing for him. It's just he didn't need to go in for the kill. It's sort of how I think more or less that's how he would envision himself as a fighter, was the killer, the inside the distance guy, the guy who always finishes, and he had something against decisions. But it happens, and you got to accept them as they come. So I just think the IQ, the fight IQ, right now it's minus 265. Obviously, the bookies are right there on this one. If it hits the ground, I mean, these guys have already been in a grappling match with each other. Giles got sort of dominated in a decision. But I think Malott could sub him at any time in this fight. So I like the Malott sub prop. I'll be hitting that. The value will probably be there for it likely. And then also we'll be parlaying him up in this parlay. So tell me what you think about Malott, and then bring your piece to the table on the tail end.
Yeah, there's a couple things on this Malott fight that I want to mention. I have a childhood friend that trains with Mike Malott. He's a wrestler. And I've been lucky enough to kind of go back and forth with him and kind of get picking pieces of how his camp's going, what's his mentality, because like you said, he got harassed online, bullied, lost that kind of hype train he had for the Neil Magny loss. And he's kind of basically said, like, he took his 2 months off after that fight. He needed the time off. And he is so focused on keeping his heart rate down, keeping himself calm, and just looking for opportunities and not going out of his way to make opportunities happen. I do think he gets a finish here. I do think he's live for KO, sub, or like you said, huge knockdown props for Giles there. I do think it goes down to a knockdown and then snatches up a sub real quick again, just like he did in the fight before, his couple fights before. Again, I don't know if it happens early because of the information I've been told from inside of a camp that, he's really just focused on keeping the heart rate down, not like in sense of not looking for the opportunities, but taking them when they're there in a sense. So again, I think he gets it done. I will be hitting the sub line. I do think he could either club and sub, ground and pound him out, whatever it is. But again, I do see a quick sub being snatched up for this guy in round 1 or 2. So I love the parlay piece. I'm coming in again, trying not to be a homer, but I watched this guy get absolutely robbed in Toronto. That guy, if you guys don't know, he's fighting Garrett Armfield, Siri Sadi. I just think this is a huge bounce back fight for him. He's fighting Garrett Armfield, who doesn't really provide that much of a threat in his style. It's going to be very similar stylistic matchups. I just see Sadi being better everywhere. And I think this is kind of one of those career changers that the UFC is throwing out and being like, hey, we know you got robbed your last fight, so we're going to give you a guy that, you most likely beat, get out there, get a win on home soil. Parlay those two up. I think he sits at minus 175. So you'd probably be close to plus money if you parlay those guys up.
Just trying to look to see if I could find the line on that one. If you could actually do it while I attack the city fight, because that actually is a fight that I did have a note on. It's a little bit of a homer play. I just think that on the feet, although Armfield does throw volume, I just think the style of striking is completely different. City is a guy that I want to say, and I know this is a little crazy to say, but style-wise, if you were to look at like an Ankalaev, and I'm not saying I know Ankalaev is one of the top of the top. I'm saying stylistically, running distance, very long, very methodical, but can land and put together some combinations that are going to drop you. And then when we get to the ground, has dominance in the top game in the wrestling, and then also has those subs as well too. It's a similar style that way. And what I mean, so I just think that for him, he's a guy who's likely going to win a lot of decisions. As much as I want to say, you know, I'm confident he can finish fights. I know he can. But I think style-wise, if you can win dominant decisions, even on the feet, I know that his last out was a little bit of a barn burner that turned into a split. I think he's going to play this a lot safer, play farther outside on this one, really pick his spots, and then even get in on the hips. Armfield, I know, is a guy who has the wrestling. That's his background. But for him to get taken down late in the fight might be something you see, because wrestlers don't always respond well. Not every wrestler has a good whizzer and can really get an overhook or anything else going to try to stop those takedowns. Some wrestlers are bad nails. So we'll see. I didn't look at the stats on that for the takedown, but I'm with you on the Series City. I'm going to be hitting him by decision prop. I think there'll probably be value on that one. But even to go to decision is something I'm looking at for this one. But as a parlay piece, I'm loving it. We got the boys. Let's go, Malat and City.
Yeah, that parlay does come out to plus 118, plus 120. I did just throw it together. So again, great odds for two Canadians to win on home soil. Looking for two bounce back wins. I think you get it done. I think that's easy money.
I like it, man. Beautiful. Let's do it. So, okay. So we got our parlay. We have our plays. What is left is the over parlay.
Overs.
So we can either go with, 2 over 1.5s or 3 fight to starts round 2, which we won't have yet. So we can't find value on 2 over 1.5s. Then we'll look at something else. So if you could pull up your book, I'm going to pull up some of the lines and typology as well here.
I got 3 overs written down right now. None of the books haven't offered over, so I don't got lines on them right now. But I assume they're going to be a little chalky. To ride with the first over, they've been cashing lately. We've been talking about the gloves. They don't knockdown rates are super, super down. This is a guy who's looking for his bounce back fight. We've talked about him on this podcast. Charles Jourdain, I'm going to take that fight over 1.5. I think this fight stays on the feet. I think he outpoints him to a decision. I don't see Jourdain getting finished brutally again, unfortunately. And I don't see Jourdain providing a brutal finish himself. I just don't see that physicality in him anymore. Very good of a stylistically point fighter, but for my first over 1.5, that's what I will be riding.
Yeah, no, I don't mind that one. And for yourself, like if anybody's tailing the Jourdain money line, in that situation, you sort of have, if the fight does go over, you at least have a bit of the fight where you're going to potentially cash on. A little bit, and you're not, if it goes to decision, you get screwed, and Jourdain loses. At least you got some kind of a win coming out of the game, that fight. I am interesting. I had a couple spots, but I'm trying to see where there's going to be some good value. So I know that if we two over 1.5, so they're going to hit. Like Marc-Andre Barrios fight has me interested. The Kyle Machado fights.
I have a really good a really good one. I just want to briefly talk about this.
Yeah,
fight.
Talk about them. Let's go.
Yeah, I just want to briefly talk about this fight because I think this fight, it could be honestly fight of the night. These two fighters are going to be slept on. Jack Shore, Yusuf Zalal. I think that is a banger, straight up banger. Not touching it. I'm not touching either side. I've cashed on both before. I've cashed on Shore. I've cashed on Zalal. I think this is one for the fans. Jack Shore probably going to look to take it down to the ground, and Yusuf Zalal going to probably look to keep it on the feet. That's where he's best. But I love that over. I think it's two really high-level guys that have a little bit of a stylistic difference. So they're both going to be worried about something the other provides, and that usually provides a little bit of hesitancy, which leads to overs, which leads to overs, right? They're not going to throw caution into the wind for this one. And they both need the win. So I love the over 1.5 there. You might get a decent prop at it just because Yusuf Zalal does finish. And I think Jack Shore just got finished. I'd have to double check.
That's the only thing that scares me to bring that one for the parlay. But I do like it because I do see value in it. And I think that I might attack it by itself if there's value in it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to go with Garrett Armfield and Series City. So we're going to go Garrett Armfield, Series City, and your piece was
Jourdain over 1.5.
Jourdain over 1.5. So I think we'll go with that. We'll hit the overs on those wherever the value is going to lie right before the fight. So you're going to be able to hit over 1.5 on both of them, but you're probably not going to get good value. So wherever the line sits when it drops, it's over 1.5 on one of them, over 2.5 on the other one. Whatever it'll be, that will be the parlay. So overs in both of those fights, the Jourdain fights and the Series City fights. I like it. I definitely like it. And then for our parlay, we have Series City, Mike Malott, and that sits around plus 120, you said, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And then to recap your spots just really quick in a rapid fire.
We're going to go first fight of the night. Ayman Zahabi, money line, sits at plus 105. Second, Charles Jourdain, money line, even odds there. Pick him minus 110. And then I'm going with the dog, main event. Amir Albazi gets it done and soon to get a title shot.
Nice. Then I'm going to go to start off with Rose Namajunas, who's a slight dog at plus 105 right now. Level check. I think she pieces up Blanchfield. I may even look at strikes in that one as well, too. Yeah. Next, we look at Jasmine Jasudavicius. This is a homer play, guys. Straight up. The line, I like her as a dog. I like her when she's underestimated. I think she does win this fight. I've seen multiple things. I think the pressure is going to be the key. Minus 165, but I'm going to hit Jasmine, then fight to start round 2, parlayed on FanDuel. That'll be the play. And then when we look at Derek Lewis, I mean, even as a dog, that might become my dog. Like him at plus 140, depending on where the line goes in heavyweights, he just puts your lights out with nothing. Yeah. I mean, that by KO is the prop I'm going to look at, but I might even play him as the dog. Yeah. And then obviously we talked about Mike Malott and Series City as our parlay, which I think is going to cash. But once again, we put ourselves out on a limb and left ourselves potentially to be heartbroken by the militia.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, Canadian MMA Contender Series hasn't treated me well. Toronto card hasn't treated me well. Vancouver card hasn't treated me well. I think this is it. I mean, I say this every time. I don't want to get my hopes too high, but I do agree that I think this is a little bit of a different kind of fight night, different stylistic matchups. And I do. I mean, we started this podcast by saying, I think it's a little bit of a 50-50 one. We didn't go crazy with the Canadian picks, I don't think. But yeah, I think we picked close to amount of like the 50% line. So listen, I love all the parlays we put together, the 3 picks, your 3 picks. I don't miss this card. It's going to be a great card. The cards are always super, super fun in Canada. And let's fire it up. I'm fired up.
All right, brother, for proper MMA, for Callum McGregor of the Donttap podcast, bets, honestly, man, just bankroll management. I see people so angry out there. Bet responsibly, especially with the card coming up. We're jumping ahead, and it's retrospectively now. I hope you didn't get crushed on the Holloway, Whitaker, all the dogs that are potentially out there on the card that just passed. Bankroll management is key when you're dog hunting. Be careful. Bet responsibly, guys. Donttap podcast, we out.
I'm Gentleman Josh Hill.
I'm Aaron Jeffrey.
I'm Jasmine Jasudavicius.
I'm Mike Malott.
I'm Rafian Stop. Tune into Donttap.
That definitely, I think, in some of the handicappers I talked to has influenced the gambling line.